John Campbell, one of the most successful managers in Southall City history. We've got you here for a chat with us today to talk about your time at City, how you got into coaching, how you got into management, and the time you had at Southwell. Because, you know, it is a really big part of the history of this club. And I think a lot of people who probably weren't around at that time, myself, for example, would like to know a bit more about what happened and why it all clicked and what the good stuff and the bad stuff from that era, really. So, John, you started with Southall at the beginning of the early 90s, was it?
I retired from playing in 1992.
Yeah.
But just before that, my son Peter was playing for South Notts Schools and the Schools FA. And one of the lads that was also playing was a lad called Robbie Barber.
Okay.
And his dad, David Barber, was running one of the youth teams in Sunday football. And he asked if Peter would join Southall City under 16s, I believe.
Right.
So first of all, as always, I was taxi, taking them all over Lincolnshire. And as is inevitable when you've played football and coached, you start sort of saying to the boys, you know, don't go in there, come out here. You know, if he can't see you, he can't pass to you. And David very quickly leapt on that and said, oh, are you a coach? And I said, yes. Why? And he said, well, I don't really know very much about it, but I'm quite happy to do the administration. Will you help? So I agreed. And there was another lad there, I can't remember his name, but his dad was Eddie Hemmings, who used to play for Notts and England, and he played left back. And so Eddie and I got together and did a bit of coaching with the under-16s in the Lincolnshire Sunday League. And we did absolutely miles after miles after miles. I don't know how many times I got close to Skegness, but never got there. But yeah, we were very successful. It was a good side. We then took them on to the under-17s. And I think at that point, I think we won the league and we lost in the final of the county cup at that age group. So they're a good bunch of lads.
Right. Was the junior section quite big at Southall at that time, or was it just a couple of teams? How, you know?
It was that team.
It was that team, right?
That was it. Yeah.
Okay.
That was it. And so yeah, no, there were no other teams.
Right. That's interesting.
And then it coincided that the reserves of Southall City were relegated from the Notts Alliance that same year. And there was a few unhappy people at Southall City about that. And unbeknown to me at that time, Robbie Barber's dad, David, put my name forward to run the reserves.
Right.
And see if we could get them back into the Notts Alliance. And so Rowley Cottam approached me and I said no. And he said, why? And I said, well, I've been playing football now since I was about 8. I've been playing and manager. I was player manager for what they didn't call it manager in those days. You were captain. So basically from the age of 25, I was going to selection meetings and recruiting and playing at the same time. So I decided I want to rest. But also I'd seen bits of the reserves and I didn't really fancy it, to be honest. Eventually, Rowley came back to me and said, well, you know, will you think about it? And I said, well, I'll come and watch a couple of games and then I'll see, which I did. And again, I said, well, really, I'm not interested. And he asked why. And I said, well, it's not really a reserve side, is it? I said, it's an old man's team. I said, basically, all these guys are just trying to extend their career. I said, so, you know, if Mick Heron wants a right back, basically he hasn't got one because, you know, the guy's too old and has done it before, but, you know, he's just not going to be able to play at that level.
Yeah.
To which Rowley said, well, if we say do what you want and recruit what you want and whatever, will you have a go? So at that I said I would. So I organised a number of pre-season friendlies and whatever, used the under-17s that were interested in playing in senior football, had some good guys like Ian Paling, Johnny Maiden, a very good, very good friend, but also relative, a lad called Chris Fox, who had played at a very high level, was very, very skillful. He agreed to come and play as well. So I built a youth side around 3 or 4 seasoned players. We got to the semi-final of the cup, to be honest, where we were robbed by Greenwood because they played a couple of ringers, and
still hurts now.
Yep, yes, it was annoying because I knew it on the night, but it was confirmed because the first team were playing Greenwood the next night, and I went to watch, and the guy that scored against us scored against the first team as well. But unfortunately, Pat wouldn't let me take it forward. He just said, "Well, it's one of those things." But we got promoted back to the Alliance.
Right.
So we then went obviously into the Alliance, and it happened to coincide with the year that Mick Heron got the first team up into the senior division of the Alliance again, and that was it really. We had another good year as reserves, but unfortunately the first team didn't do so well. It struggled a bit, and have to say, my belief was they weren't that organised either. They were always turning out with 10 men and 9 men and calling me up at 2 o'clock saying I need 2 players and so on and so forth. So it wasn't too surprising that they struggled. And to be honest, they had 4 or 5 games at the end of the season which they needed to get points to stay in, and they just made it. And I was asked by Rhoda to do a couple of the night matches as well, which fortunately we won, and we stayed up. But Mick decided to call it a draw, and then they asked me to do the first team. So that's where it went from there.
So that was in 1996 then, John?
95, 96, was my first year as the first team.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm looking at the all the things we've won since then, and the first thing we won, 1998-99 season, Notts Alliance Senior Division runners-up.
Yep.
And then 2000 to 2001, Notts Alliance Senior Division champions.
Yeah, that's right.
And then obviously 2001 to 2002, Notts FA Senior Cup finalists.
Well, that was really, I don't know whether the shirts are still there, but I deliberately got some polo shirts done because really it was 2 silvers and a gold, because we were runners-up again in the Alliance.
Yeah.
We won the cup, the Senior Cup in the Alliance, and we were runners-up in the County Cup.
Yeah.
So we challenged on all 3 fronts, but we only got one of them. But again, I think we were a bit unlucky.
Yeah. So the Notts FA Senior Cup final, where was that?
Notts County, Meadow Lane.
Yeah, and I bet that was an occasion.
It was a very good occasion, good crowd, 2 good teams. We only got beat 1-0, and I think that flattered them. And but unfortunately, one key player got hurt in the first 10, 12 minutes, which meant that we had to change things around fairly urgently, and didn't quite get there. I think, to be honest, if the side that I put out had not suffered that, I think we would have won.
Yeah.
But obviously, they were what, 2-3 leagues above us.
Yeah.
But that didn't worry out my team at all. We'd already beaten Eastwood in the semi-final. So we weren't worried about them at all, but gave them a very good game.
No, it's fantastic that you put together such a good team that could compete at such a decent level, really. We're very strong on the pitch. Wasn't this around about the same time that the stuff was happening off the pitch as well with the
Well,
floodlights?
we needed floodlights
Yeah.
to go any further, and really, if they'd applied all the rules, we needed more than that. We needed a turnstile. We needed the ground to be fenced off,
Yeah.
floodlights, all those sort of things. None of which were going to be approved by the Southwell Parish Council.
Yeah.
I mean, they just completely objected to them all.
Yeah.
But I basically sidelined them and went direct to Sherwood and what is it now, Newark and Sherwood Council,
Yeah.
to the sports officer there, and we got planning permission for the lights, much to their annoyance.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But anyway, but we couldn't get the fencing off, and we couldn't get the turnstiles. But because we had a really, really good side, and to be honest, it was the club itself was doing really, really well. We managed to get the hierarchy of the Central Midlands down, and then obviously it's a beautiful place to play football.
Yeah.
And they agreed to us roping it off, and eventually we did close that side off, and we're able to take money for the programs and all those sort of things. But yeah, it was very successful, and great credit to people like Rowley Cotton, John Rushby, Pat Johnson, and lots more. We raised a lot of money, and we got a lot of people through the door. I mean, there were times when we were playing Newark sides or Hucknall sides or local sides, we could get 400 or 500 down there on a Saturday.
Really?
That's
quite impressive. Yeah.
Well, at times you couldn't get in the bar after the game. They were just packed in. So I mean, again, Pat will have all the accounts, but I mean, he took a lot of money over the bar in those days.
Right. And was the kind of playing environment similar to nowadays? I guess the Southwell players weren't paid.
No,
maybe other teams were playing players at the time.
Yeah.
And how difficult did that make it to kind of keep a good squad or a good team together with those kind of rules?
It was difficult. I mean, but Johnny's relative Barry Turner. I mean, he could have gone and played, and in fact, I think it was Eastwood Town again. He could have gone and played there, and the manager actually tried to sort of sign him, at the bar after Barry had played for me in a pre-season friendly. And I actually said to him, I said, look, I don't mind you sort of like trying to tap up my players. I said, but you really didn't want to do it in my bar as well. And Barry, to his great credit, said, don't worry about it. I'm not going to sign for him.
Right.
And he played for me. And he wasn't, what would Barry be then? About 21.
Right.
And was he was a Forest professional until he got released. Very, very good player. I mean, I remember his first game, nobody knew who he was. But by the end of the game, they did.
They did.
How did you get him down, John? How did you get him down? Like, how did you come across?
Well, I'd known Barry.
Nice.
Don't forget, I was involved down at Forest as well, helping with the coaching and the and refereeing and all sorts of things. And two of my lads were down there. So Michael, my second lad, was in the same team at Forest Boys, as it were called then, at Forest. So I knew Barry very well. Of course, I knew his mum and dad. Of course, I played with Dave before Dave became ill. I played in the same. Well, Dave was more in the reserves, but I played for the same club as Barry's dad. Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the fact that we came runners up that year. When I mentioned we were in 3 trophies, and one of the problems was that I had a very, very, very good centre forward, which I'd brought out of Sunday football, and we worked on him quite well, and he scored goals for fun. And with about 6 games to go, we were well in it. To be honest, probably would have won it. And we played a night match down at Dunkirk against Woollerton, and this lad called Kevin Maybon, he absolutely destroyed Woollerton. But unfortunately for me, Brian Chambers, who was the manager of Eastwood, was there, and he literally signed him after the game.
Right.
And so I lost my centre forward, and I really didn't have the time to get one replaced.
No.
If we'd have kept Kev, we would have won the league that year, and we probably would have beaten Gedlin too.
Mm.
So that was just it just happened. And then Alistair Baird, that's with you now. Alistair went to Eastwood to try his way. So did Anthony Newton.
Right. Still calls him Hassel.
Newts
still holding on, 43, still playing.
He's a good lad. He causes everybody a problem. I'll tell you a few stories about Newts, but there we go. But Newts came back just in time for the championship, and that was that was good, because he certainly made a difference in that midfield in those days. Couldn't get Alistair back at that time. Alistair came back the year later. But yeah, you can't stand in the way of these lads.
No.
I mean, later on, another one, Sam Saunders and Ben Saunders, the Saunders twins. Ben was awesome. I mean, he 18, 19. He was really strong. He was difficult, and managed to get him a trial at Doncaster, and they actually took him on. He signed, but unfortunately, again, changes of management up at that level, and Ben was sent out on loan, and it didn't really quite work out for him. But as an amateur player, the Saunders twins were brilliant players. Players.
No, well, it's a compliment to the setup you had, John. If you're giving players that kind of springboard, really, to go off and try their luck at a higher level. That it's a great thing, really. And obviously, looking at the history, what you've said today, things going well off the pitch, on the pitch. If you could, if you were looking back now, what would you say was the high point for you of your era? The thing you look back at with a kind of fondest memory of that time.
Well, I was when I retired, I was interviewed by Tony Smith, who was the editor of the Newark Advertiser.
Yeah.
And he asked me the same question. I said, well, undoubtedly the championship.
Yeah.
Because Southwell had never won it before.
No.
And it took a few years to build a very, very good side.
Yeah.
And as I say, the following year, we came close again in all 3 competitions, and it was a credit to those players. I concede very quickly. I did say to Johnny when we were having a chat, I know it's very, very much more difficult now than in my era. I had a squad of 15, 16 players who wanted to play every week, every game. And the pressure was there for them to keep their shirts, because they knew that if they went with the missus shopping and missed a game, and somebody came in and we won well, they knew me as well as I knew them. It was very easy. If we won 3-4-0 and played well, I went into the dressing room and said, everybody available for next week?
Yeah.
Okay, same side. See you Wednesday night for training. And those that were missing sort of had to fight their way back in.
Yeah.
So people didn't miss many matches.
No. Tell us about that championship season then, John. Did you know from the beginning of the season, early doors, that you were going to win it, or was it something that kind of crept up on you gradually as the season went along? How did it feel that season?
Oh no, we were runners up the year before.
Yeah.
So we were always very strong.
Yeah.
And I needed probably 2 or 3 players just to make sure. So I recruited a very good goalie, with the help of Barry, a guy called Gareth Bow, again, an ex-Forest lad. And he was a top quality keeper, top quality. Of course, there was one or two others. Jeppo, he came along. He was a very strong left-sided player. But no, I'll be honest with you. I knew after the first game,
right?
Because Boots had been, always a thorn in the side, and they were the champions before us.
Yeah.
And we didn't quite get there. And as it happened, we played them first game, I think, of the season.
Right.
And we absolutely destroyed them.
Right.
You just know. I mean, at that sort of level, I mean, we were the best side in the Notts Alliance by a long way. People just came to try and shut up shop. But you can't do that when guys are so comfortable on the ball. I mean, they're all good footballers. They all knew what they were doing. And of course, the guy I should also mention, I had a very, very, very good coach in Tony Cook.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony came as a player, but then when he left his job and went coaching at Forest, again, the training on a Wednesday night and the coaching was exceptional.
Yeah.
And, I could tell him things that we needed to work on, and he was, well, if he wasn't on the pitch, he was at my side. And we were seeing things that said, look, we could do that. But I mean, I don't know how it happens, but we were very professional. I mean, we had, unlike other clubs, I mean, we had routines for defending corners, for example.
Yeah.
The side knew exactly where they should be. None of this, pick him up, oh, blimey, that's a goal gone. They knew exactly where they'd be, how we defended a corner.
Yeah.
We had free kick routines. I mean, Barry and Donald Flynn, who again played for City Boys for years, they had all sorts of free kick routines and tricks which they brought along, and of course Tony, brought quite along, from the Forest routines.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything, it just all gelled together. To be honest,
fantastic.
It was a good time.
No. On the flip side of that, then, John, what was the kind of the harder stuff of that era? The stuff that maybe you look back with, kind of with regret, or with kind of feeling that you could, that you weren't so happy with. Was there any of that kind of stuff? Obviously, things like Greenwood playing ringers is still, I can understand why it still hurts. That hurt me.
Football-wise, I was very comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, to Rowley Cotham's credit, and later on, Colin. Basically, the rules were, I'll run the football. Please don't interfere. And you run the club, and I'll help you as much as I can.
Yeah.
And they did that, apart from once, and that certainly got short shrift fairly quickly. But
you got to tell us about that then, John. What happened there?
No, it's probably better I don't. No, just a couple of things, but I'm that sort of character. If I'm doing a job, I'm doing it, and there was just just a couple of occasions, but I did actually take them to one side and just said to them, look, you may think you know a lot about football, and I respect it if you do, but this is my job. It's my job that's on the line, and I'm here to win things, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to respond to your comments. It's just, it's my job to pick the team, not yours.
All right. Yeah.
But there were a couple of things. No, I think the major problem, to be honest, was which was I found very difficult, was the sort of poor relationship between the amateurs and the city.
Okay.
Which was horrendous, to be honest.
Tell us more about that, yeah.
Well, it was just over the pitch, really. I mean, the Amos always wanted to play on the main pitch,
right?
Which, fair enough. We said to them, well, look, if you organise your fixtures when we're away, it's not a problem. You can play on the main pitch, and the reserves will play on the top pitch. But Southall City have a lease, which they did at that time. I can't remember. I think the lease was probably 10 or 12 years to go. Obviously, the local guys at City had invested in the clubhouse. We'd invested in the lights. So we felt that when we were given a fixture by the league, well, then that took precedent.
Yeah.
But the amateurs at that time didn't. They wanted to, if you like, share the pitch,
right.
which we didn't mind sharing. But I mean, there's daft things like they would, when we were away, they'd play on the pitch, but then they'd go and hire a changing room at the leisure centre and walk through and play.
Right.
I remember saying, well, it's daft. There's changing rooms there that are not being used. Why don't?
Yeah.
Why just don't you use them and go in the bar afterwards? But they wouldn't. It was just a bit silly, really. And
right.
Of course, then we wanted to do other things. They objected every time, So for me, trying to get lights, trying to get the pitch fenced off, trying to get the turnstiles, trying to get the I don't know whether it's still there, but the awning so people didn't get rained on when
there. Yeah.
All those sort of things. It was a battle because they just objected to it all the time.
Right.
I mean, I really, I've lost count of the number of times that I was giving presentations to Southall City Parish Council.
Right.
trying and move the thing on, but I don't know. I mean, I suppose really I did take on board what they were saying, that players weren't actually living in Southall and it should just be Southall players. But I mean, if you want to win things, you can't do that.
No.
I mean, we had a good spattering with Newts and Beardy, Johnny Simpson, the Saunders twins later on, Osters. So there were some people that lived in Southall, but other people came in because they were good players.
Well, it sounds like you got the balance right, John, because at the end of the day, we weren't paying players. So, if players chose to play for us because we were a good team, then so be it, really. And you obviously you did have that balance between local players and players from, say, Nottingham, and you achieved a lot, really, in terms of what you were doing on the pitch, but also all the kind of stuff that went off behind the scenes, like you say, to try and make it a better experience for the players and for the fans. So you achieved quite a lot there, John, really. In terms of the Notts Alliance, when we won it, was there a route out of that division, or would we I know obviously we stayed in that division. Did we stay there because of the infrastructure, or?
No. I mean, in the end of the day, they're not. There's lots of teams that were around and had won it. I mean, Woolerton, Boots, Reneth, all those teams. I mean, the Notts Alliance locally was the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And unless you wanted to travel further, which was the Central Midlands.
Yeah.
A lot of teams were not interested in travelling.
Yeah.
So you had to apply then to the Central Midlands, but it wasn't all. I mean, footballing wise, it wasn't all about football. It was all about the facilities, because it's this grading system, which I assume they still have now.
Yeah.
The grounds are graded, but you can have the best team, in the whole of the East Midlands. But if you haven't got a fenced off pitch, if you haven't got floodlights, if you haven't got a stand for 30 people, if you haven't this, that, and the other, then you can't actually go up into that league.
No, of course.
So we had to do all that. But as I say, we invited them down, and they were very impressed with the clubhouse. They were very impressed with the lights. They were very impressed with the pitch. The pitch in those days was brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been down there for many years, but I mean, people like John Rushby used to put hours and hours and hours into that pitch, to get it flat and a good surface to play on. I've lost count the number of times in dry season when John had gone down there and got one of his fire brigade friends to come and put the hoses on and douse the pitch before we played a decent, an important game and things like that. They were a bunch
he
of
used the dike water, didn't he? I think.
Pardon?
He used the dike.
Yeah, use the dike, but we used to get the fire engine down and get the hoses on.
Fantastic.
And get a decent surface.
Mm.
So yeah, we managed it, and they led us in, and of course we then had to get up. So that was the next task, was get up into the Supreme. So, and again, I lost players. I lost Newts, I lost Beardy, and those two, Eastwood and one or two others, but we rebuilt. And we got up into the Supreme at the first effort. And then, and then really after a while, I could see where we went from there was going to be difficult. Because I just knew the parish council were not going to allow us to have a stand, and we weren't going to, hard standing, we weren't going to be able to have those. And I realised it was going to be more and more difficult to recruit players, and not pay them, or not make expenses. And so I decided that I'd probably gone as far as I could go.
Right. Okay.
And resigned at the end of that season and retired.
Yeah. And was that a tough decision for you to make at the time, or were you kind of happy for the rest by then, or how did it?
Yeah, I mean, it also coincided with quite a difficult time in my own business.
Right.
So again, I needed more time. I mean, I hear Johnny saying about the program, but I mean, I used to print all the programs and write most of it as well. So there was lots to do, and as I say, it came at a fairly difficult time, as I said, in the business. So I decided really I should concentrate on that as well. So that's really what happened.
Right. So that was what, 2004, the end of 2004?
2005.
2005. Yeah.
End of that season. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so you went off and concentrated on your business, and after that, did you follow Southall's journey, or did you come down and watch, or what? Or did you kind of wash your hands of football and move away from it?
I didn't wash my hands of football totally.
Right.
I decided that, having been there for all those years, and obviously had a reasonable influence on it, I just decided to stay away and give the new manager not having somebody looking over his shoulder.
Yeah.
So basically, no, I stayed away.
Right.
So I think I've watched maybe 3 or 4 matches since I retired at Southall.
Right.
That's about all.
Right.
Yeah.
So, interesting. Yeah. That's quite a shift, isn't it? From obviously when you've been so hands-on for so long to then kind of not be. I can understand why you didn't, but that must be quite hard as well. The kind of withdrawal, I guess.
Well, I mean, obviously my own lad Peter was still playing.
Yeah.
And still is, as you will see in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
So because because Brett almost, well, he did. He actually, I don't think he retained any of the players.
Right.
Can't think of who stayed. I went to watch other games. I mean, Peter had gone to Carlton Town, so I went to watch there.
Yeah.
And then he then ended up with Johnny Simpson and one or two others at Radcliffe.
Yeah.
So I went to watch that, and I still watch some local football.
I was going to say to you, do you watch much local football nowadays then, John?
No. The only football I watch now would be my grandson, who's at the Forest Academy.
Right.
But they've not been allowed to see him for the last year because they wouldn't let us in with this COVID stuff.
No, of course, yeah.
But I'm looking forward to going to watch him again.
Right.
He's in the under-12s at the academy.
Right.
And to be honest, my other grandson, Luke, who's 15, he's a good, tidy little player, Peter's lad.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's still some football to watch.
Yeah, excellent. I'm interested in your opinion on what the club's doing now in terms of moving the first team to Brinkley, because obviously, you know, you've talked about your frustrations about developing the first team while you're at the Memorial Ground. What's your view on the Brinkley move for the club at the moment?
Well, interestingly, my very first game for Southwell City was against Mansfield Town.
Yeah.
On the Brinkley ground.
Right.
When it opened, it was the first match ever to be played.
Really?
My opinion is well known. We should have gone there then. When it was brand new. Yeah.
Right.
Because we could have put the lights up, we could have fenced it off, we could have done really what we wanted. But I was outvoted by a very, very big margin.
Really?
Yeah. The old guard, and I understood it, to be honest. You know, Rowley, John Rushby, Pat, you know, they built that clubhouse really with their own hands.
Yeah.
And they felt that that's where they wanted to be. They wanted to be on the Memorial Ground, and that was it. But you know, I think I am on record. I don't. Well, that's if whoever secretary at the time wrote it down.
Yeah.
I did say, well, I think this is a great opportunity, and this is where we should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, my very first game for the first team was against Mansfield Town, which I'd arranged with, what was his name? Keith Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I know.
And so they brought a team down to play a pre-season friendly. And Johnny Simpson, who ended up as captain, who used to play before, but he didn't get on with Mick Heron. I recruited him, and he came back, and he was captain from that day on until I retired. A great Southwell City stalwart, and of course ended up as manager after Brett and Mark.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's great, and I'm sure you'll do well. Should the first team now progress, I'm sure you won't have any problem, you know, with the ground grading. No.
Good. Well, it's good that we've got your blessing, John. That means.
Well, you don't need it.
It's tough. It is tough. Like, you get emotionally attached to the Memorial. It's easy to do it. Like, you're right, John. It's a nice, good place to play. Everyone that goes down there likes it. It's got a good atmosphere. And quite rightly, if you could go up and progress at that ground, then we would have done by now, or wanted to have done by now. But there's too many obstacles and too many hurdles. And I think it also helps that times have changed. If you look at some of the teams, I think even in your era, John, that you managed against, even when I started playing, those teams that you played against, I think Baseford were one. Look at where they are now, and most of the teams in Step 6 were in our level. Your Gedlins, your Cliftons, etc. So
I remember it very well. Baseford. I mean, there's a classic. Baseford were in the league that we were when we won champions.
Yeah.
And we went down there and to that ground. It was awful. It was absolutely dreadful. And we beat them 6-0.
Yeah.
And their midfielder, who was the best player they got, came to me straight after the game and said, "Is there any chance of coming and playing for you?"
Yeah.
And he did, but only for a couple of games.
Well, our under-21s are playing them on Friday, so we'd take that result any day of the week, John. But
well,
no,
to be fair, Chris Munro has actually done very well there, and has invested a lot of time and I think personal money to get them there. So probably deserves that sort of success.
Yeah.
He was assistant manager at Radcliffe-on-Trent.
Yeah.
Or Radcliffe, as I should say, when Peter was there. So,
Yeah.
got to know Chris a bit.
Yeah. Now, going back to the Brinkley thing, though, John, I think the thing that has changed, obviously, as Johnny says, a lot of the teams have changed, but I think that the merger of Southall City with Southall United and taking on the big junior section has made a big difference because, we now have over 30 teams from under sixes upwards to right through to the adult level. And we know that when the senior team moves to Brinkley, then the kids will be using the memorial ground. And so it's not being abandoned. In fact, it will probably prosper with young footballers playing on it every weekend. So I think that's kind of helped that decision, really, because we know that we're not losing the memorial ground. We're just changing the use of it slightly, really.
Well, again, we looked at all. I mean, there was a pitch behind the club at one time, or there was an area which could have become a pitch. And I got one or two people to have a look at that, but it was never going to be big enough for the first team.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it was part of my, if you like, looking for strategies to try and get the Ammos at that time to sort of off our back and stop all the objections. But it didn't work out. But no, I mean, I think it's great. And I think it's great that you're now one of the biggest clubs in the county with all the youngsters. I think it's great. Yeah. I mean, we did try. I mean, I think, when we went up into the Central Midlands, that's when we got the under-19s team.
Yeah.
And they were a very good team, and a few then came through, like Chris Seymour, Scott Pratt, one or two others. Pardon?
Carty, Wheaty. I think Wheaty.
Yeah, Carty came. I think Carty came at the end. Carty never. I never saw Carty play, to be honest. He got into Brett's team, I think, from the under-19s. Yeah. But I never knew him. I mean, look, it's the route through. But again, I suspect you've still got a similar problem that when they get to under 7 or under 18s, so many of them go to university because the school's good, the clever lads, and it's getting them to come back. I was quite fortunate there that the Saunders twins did, and my lad did, and one or two others, actually came back from university. Cloughie, Damien Clough, great player. He came back from Bradford University to play now and again. So again, because he wanted to play at a decent standard.
Yeah. One thing we can't not talk about really is that game against Forest. How did that come about?
Well, I just really wanted to get a decent team to play when we switched on the lights.
Yeah.
And I wrote to Mansfield, Notts County, and Forest, and to his great credit, Paul Hart responded immediately.
Really excellent.
And said, I'll bring a team. And that's really what happened. And I asked Paul if he would actually, do us the honour of switching on the lights, which he did. So he came, and he was the first person to. We did check out that it worked before he did it. To be honest. But yes, so the official switch on was with Paul, and he brought quite a decent team.
Yeah.
Sprinkling of youth and experience. And again, all the committee got behind it. I mean, we invited all the dignitaries. We, both from Forest and the parish council, and we put on a nice buffet for them, which one or two of the apprentices tried to raid early on because it was all laid out. And I was talking to Charlie McParland because he was organising things before Paul came. And these two apprentices came in and took some of the couple of plates and started loading up the food. To which Charlie said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, some of the players, spotted the food and they're hungry. Sent us in for some food." And to which they were told, "Put it back." And then Charlie said, "And who is it?" And it was Tank, or Rogers, as his name was, his proper name, and I think the other one was Marlon Harewood. But, I think they were told under no circumstances were they eating before the game.
No.
And they might be lucky to eat after the game. But it was good, And if you look at that side, there was Michael Dawson as a young man playing.
Yeah.
Marlon, who took great objection to Trigger taking him out. After about 20 minutes.
He wasn't the first, and he definitely wasn't the last, I would have said.
Certainly not. No. No. But
we got a decent crowd down, yeah.
I didn't count them, but I mean there were certainly 4 and 5 deep. And certainly I didn't print enough programs.
Yeah.
But I mean I don't know. I think somebody estimated we had over 2,000 people there.
That's quite
so it was
something. That's quite something.
It was a good game. Yeah. And we gave them a game. To be honest, I think it was only 2-1 with about 10 minutes to go. And I can't remember who actually gave the penalty away. But Dawson scored a penalty at the end, make it 4-1.
All right.
My lad will tell you he's the one that scored ours.
That's a good claim to fame to have, isn't it? That's really good. Okay, that's fantastic, John. It's really good to catch up with you and to hear some of these stories. Because as I said before, you were involved in a kind of golden period for Southall City, both on and off the pitch, and a lot of the foundations that you laid are part of what makes the club what it is today, really. So, from the club side of it, I'd like to thank you for your contribution over the years.
Well, I had lots of that. I mean, I've got a very nice watch which they bought me when I retired, and a very nice tankard. So I've got some mementos. I think there's all my medals are there somewhere as well. Pat's probably got them. I don't know. Because we when we were winning things, we did actually get some medals done. For all the lads. But I think mine are still down there somewhere. I think they were in the trophy cabinet, but I don't know where the trophy cabinet is these days because I'm not. So no, look, they were a great bunch of people. I mean, I haven't seen Pat for a long time, but what a great guy he is. I mean, the time that he actually put in was just enormous. And he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. I mean, you couldn't fault his admin at all. We never got fined for putting in wrong team sheets or wrong results or not phoning them in on time, because Pat just, in fact, Pat was almost always on the phone before we actually got off the pitch to report the results and so forth. But great secretary, absolutely great.
I agree with what you say, and his recall of past events is amazing as well.
I'm sure. Yeah.
He told me dates, scorers. If I ask him things, it's quite astonishing.
Yeah.
Quite astonishing.
Yeah.
He's been a fantastic servant to the club. We're so lucky to have him, really.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah. Well, as I say, I don't know how he is these days because I've not spoke to him. But he had a couple of dodgy knees, but I'm hoping he's got them sorted by now.
He's still the same, Pat.
He's
Meticulous as ever, John.
Yeah, he will be. Yeah, there's only one way to do it, and Pat's way is to do it properly.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah,
He'll be present at the game on the 14th. No doubt about that. He'll be there.
I'm sure he will. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be at all surprised if a few aren't there. As you would imagine, if they know about it, John Rushby and Billy Taylor.
Hopefully.
I don't know. Mick Gregory. I don't know. I've not heard of Mick for a long while. Has Mick still come down?
Yeah, he's not been down. I think he had some health issues at the start of the year, but he's last time I spoke to him, he was in good spirits. He's done home and away. We've lost. I think it's fair to say we've lost a lot of volunteers really since 15, 20 years ago in terms of match day volunteers and stuff, and it becomes a lot harder. And Mick's been one of them that's stayed around. He follows his.
From that point of view, it was great. I mean, literally, I think people when we went away were quite amazed because literally we had a kit man. Mick Gregory looked after the balls. And then Billy Taylor was another. There was we had a professional physio. I mean, through Cookie, Roger Langridge used to come down every Wednesday, and if guys have got little knocks, Roger would see to them, and actually give me good advice. He says he's all right, but he isn't, so don't play him, and so on and so forth. Because as I say, at that time everybody wanted to play, and so I needed that sort of advice, as to whether they would be fit for Saturday or whether they should have a rest and for how long and what they should do. So no, it was good. It wasn't just me on my own. I had very, very good support from all the committee, every one of them.
It's quite interesting, John, actually, because since I've been involved with the club, that the reputation that I hear around football in Nottinghamshire is, about Southwell has always been that, as you say, we've always been very professional, and we've always conducted ourselves in the right way, both on and off the pitch. And I'm sure a lot of that goes down to your time, John, really, in terms of, that's how we set ourselves up as a club, really. And, Johnny's carrying on that ethos now. Yeah. I think, we try and be as professional as we can be, and to play football in the right way and to conduct ourselves in the right way on and off the pitch.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you mentioned earlier about how did I get players really to come, but once they came, they realised, that we. I insisted on it again. Once I got after the first year of the first team, I wanted proper tracksuits. With the logo on it. I wanted them to all have a polo shirt with the Southwell City brand on it.
Yeah.
And that went further and further. I mean, we at one time they had tracksuits. They'd have a polo shirt. They'd have a training top. They'd have a wet top for for running out tops if it was raining. We had proper these subsuits to keep them warm, which actually did get christened as newt suits. If you want to use that one sometime, Johnny.
I definitely use that. I still think there's one out about somewhere in the club. I'm pretty sure there is. Certainly the trousers.
No, it was. This was Newts again. Newts was. He'd not trained, and also I think he was carrying a knock, and we went to play Pelican away, and I put him down as sub, and he refused to wear the suit, so it became a Newt suit. And I think it was Barry that christened it that, because he threw the toys, but that was it. was all. So yeah, the substitutes became nuke suits after that. So there was always good banter, always good banter.
Yeah, that's it.
Right lads in the side.
Sounds really good. Yeah. Have you got anything, John? I think we've kind of covered most of the points.
No, I think we're all looking forward to it.
Yeah, be good.
On the 14th, I think I had another couple confirmed today. And so at some stage or other, I think I can just about, in fact, I think I can. Well, no, I need one. You might be able to help me there. Charlie Nichols.
Yeah. I think he's abroad at the minute, but
will he be back?
It was certainly game. He couldn't have done the first game before we moved the date. He might be back for the second. So,
well, I think if Charlie's available, then I could probably put out 11 of the championship.
Nice.
So they'd all be there.
They'll have a bigger squad than us.
Yeah.
Are you going to be returning to management for that game then, John?
I will definitely be managing. They will need managing, believe you me.
I look forward to seeing that. That'll be good.
Yeah, no, I'll be there. I'll be on the side. I'll be putting the side out, and they'll be told what is expected of them.
Fantastic. That sounds good. That sounds like it's going to be a really good event.
Yeah.
So, John, thanks very much for sharing some time with us tonight and giving us a bit of the background for people like myself who probably weren't around at the time. As I said before, it was a golden era for the club, and yeah, it'd be great to see you down in November with the championship winning team, and we can see off the Memorial Ground for the seniors at least in style.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Be really good.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure Johnny will add to the silverware. He's got one, so he should get a few more in the next few years.
There's open.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. No pressure, John.
No pressure, Johnny. Thanks, John.
Okay. Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
All right. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.